What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of today's discussion in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet. We're living under a rock and seeing this video for the first time. I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sit Down video. If you're listening to us currently on iTunes or Spotify, welcome in. Hope you enjoy the show as well. Please leave us a detailed review and a 5-star rating. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. My name is Jeff Nadu. This is episode 235 of the Sit Down. Another week, another dollar, as they say. As always, the show is powered by Profit X. I know a lot of you out there that are watching, that are listening to this show right now, you like to bet on sports. And wagering on sports is a fickle business. There are several things you need to know, though, when you do it. Number one, you got to make sure you're getting the best odds in the business. And my people at Profit X have you covered with that due to the fact that it's a prediction exchange and you're betting lines set by yourself or by others. You're always going to get the best odds. The good thing as well is they're never going to limit you. What does that mean? Well, if you bet on FanDuel or bet MGM and you win too much, they're going to cut you off. It's that simple. And you don't even have to win that much. But if you consistently are able to pick winners and do a good job, they're going to cut you off. That's never going to happen at Profit X. They also offer the ability to bet in places like California, Texas, and Florida, where legal sports books may not be able to be had. So do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the pinned comment, get yourself an account, sign up, deposit. If you're checking us out on audio, download the sleek Profit X app now. Enter my promo code, Jeff Nadu. Get yourself some extra perks and bonuses. Profit X. Click the link in the pinned comment and get aboard now. There's a lot to bet on right now. College basketball, the NBA, NFL, college football. You got all sorts of things to wet your whistle with. ProfitX.co. Use my promo code, Jeff Nadu, or click the link in the pinned comment. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the episode for this week. And as a lot of you know, I've been on the forefront of covering the major case out of the NBA, the Mafia, involving poker and sports betting and all sorts of things. Today, we're going to kind of put a bow on it, if you will, at least for now. This story happened about 2 weeks ago. And I think at this point, obviously, we've talked at length about the case. However, we're going to talk about one final person today. And this isn't the end for this case. Obviously, there's still a lot to shake out. I think there's going to be more with this case. But I wanted to delve further into one of the people really at the center of this case. When you look at both of these indictments, you're going to see one name, and his name is Shane Hennen. Who exactly is Shane Hennen? Where did it all begin with this guy, and why do I believe that he is the source of information for all of this case and more? Let's take a look at one of the most prolific scammers in America today, the story of Shane Hennen. Next on the Sit Down. Shane Hennen was born in June of 1985 in Washington, PA, a suburb of Pittsburgh. As you can see, Washington is southwest of Pittsburgh, not far away. As far as what I know about Shane Hennen, he comes from a family of gamblers. He would even say on his Instagram page that he learned how to gamble from his grandfather. He played cards, all that sort of thing. He was actually, as a kid, from what I understand, a pretty accomplished pool player. He would hustle guys at pool halls around Pittsburgh, and was a pretty effective player. He did a nice job. In fact, in and around 2006, gambling would kind of catch up to Shane Hennen. He would be arrested at the age of 21 and given probation for operating illegal video game devices. So we could venture to believe he had some sort of video poker machines that he was running. Obviously, that's a pretty well-known racket in cities, both big and small. And Pittsburgh is a city that is known for gambling. There's a lot of involvement of gambling in the West Virginia area and the Southwest Pennsylvania area. So Hennen, maybe someone in his family was involved with gaming devices, and he took a case for that in his early 20s. He would be arrested again in 2009 for allegedly stabbing a man in the neck with a box cutter outside of a bar on Pittsburgh's South Side. However, those would not be the only charges that Mr. Hennen would face in 2009. In 2009, he would be hit by the feds with essentially possession with an intent to deliver charges on cocaine. Basically, he was selling coke in a parking lot outside of Washington, PA, and was hemmed up in some federal cases. He can be seen here in the case USA versus Hennen, where you can see a bunch of other names, including a person called Dennis Sersone. From what I understand, not only would Hennen cooperate against Sersone, but he would also cooperate against a person called Franco Bedini. More on Franco in just a second. Now, as we could see here, eventually, once Bedini is convicted of selling narcotics, he would actually appeal, and he would argue that his conviction should be reversed because district court improperly admitted testimony of government witness Shane Hennen. Notice, government witness Shane Hennen. Now, I will state, I talked to Franco Bedini about Shane Hennen, and he didn't have a lot of good things to say. For anyone that's curious, Franco Bedini would ultimately get 20 years in federal prison, due in large part to the testimony of Shane Hennen. This is him today in a suburb of Pittsburgh where he lives with his sons. Bedini would tell me that he's doing his best to pick his life back up. Obviously, he spent about 15 years in prison, had to go through a bunch of joints. And, I asked him, I said to him, what do you think about all this with Hennen? Are you surprised that he's still up to what he's up to? And he said in a text message, quote, Shane Hennen is no doubt a source of information and witness for the government in this gambling case. It is gratifying for me to see him in this predicament, and it confirms what I've been saying since he testified against me. He lied, scammed, and cheated people out of money on a daily basis for decades. Shortly after testifying against me, he showed his face in Pittsburgh and took a beating by guys who had it out for him. He then bounced around different states, scamming people ever since. A good lawyer should ask him, have you lied, scammed, and cheated people out of money your entire life? Knowing this and the kind of person you are, why should any jury believe you? Shane would have no answer to that question. For the record, I never sold or discussed anything about drugs with him. His testimony against me was not corroborated by any evidence. It was all lies to save his own ass. Throughout his life, he scammed his family, friends, and anyone he came across who he thought was vulnerable. How can a jury member in America believe anything that a lifelong con man like Shane Hennen has to say? Thank you and God bless. Franco Bedini. So, harsh words. This is a guy, Hennen, who, if we notice, sold narcotics. And even from a young man, this guy did anything he could to get out of it. Now, I also talked to Bedini, and he would tell me, I said, are you surprised by some of this poker stuff? And he said, no, this guy has been doing these stunts, this type of behavior his entire life. He cons people and then just picks up and goes somewhere else and does it again, which is interesting because when he cooperated in the drug case, he had a very short prison sentence, and it was at some summer camp somewhere in the South. He then goes to Florida, lives there for a period of time, and then Hennen resurfaces several years later in Philadelphia. He would have an apartment in the trendy and upscale Northern Liberties neighborhood in Philadelphia. And this is where Hennen has this new career. He decides that he wants to get into the glitzy, glammy life of sports betting, handicapping. Now, a little bit of background about what a sports betting handicapper is. Essentially, it is a person who sells picks or information to bettors. Now, I will state, most sports betting handicappers do not consistently win, and they cannot prove that they consistently win. Now, I have talked to people that bought Shane Hennen's picks. All of them lived in Philadelphia. One person would tell me that at one point, he was paying Hennen $1,000 a week for picks. So just think about that. let's say Hennen has, 50 customers. That's $50,000 a week. That's just 50. My guess is through social media, which a lot of these guys are pretty good at. They're great marketers. They're great at showing you, if you bet like me, you bet with me, you can have the nice life like I have. Now, here's the question I have for Shane Hennen. The first question I have: where did the money come from? How did Shane Hennen take himself from a guy selling coke in a parking lot in Pittsburgh to a short time in federal prison after cooperating, to completely reinventing himself, going across the state? And I talked to someone who bought the picture of him that told me he regularly drove around a Rolls-Royce SUV. He lived in a $1 million condo. He was gambling hundreds of thousands of dollars at casinos. Where did that money come from? I guess that's the big question, isn't it? Now, I will state that Mr. Hennen, at one point, even on a private jet during those years, and we're talking about the late 2010s into the early 2020s, he was counting out millions of dollars on a jet. Do I think he was making a lot of money selling picks? Absolutely. But it's interesting because when he was selling the picks, I talked to someone as well who also bought his picks. And at one point, he would kind of belittle you if you weren't able to get the pick in, and kind of knock you and say, you're not smart. You should be listening to what I tell you and be getting everything in. Hennen was very kind of forceful with what he did. Was he making a lot of money selling picks? Probably. But we also have to know that he was also scamming people in poker games. He was slowly building his ability to make connections with other scammy sports bettors, in turn to what we now see with some of these indictments. But I do want to review a cheating case that popped up in 2023 involving Hennen. And this really only came out on Twitter, and it involved multiple people, including Wesley Fee, seen on the left with the sunglasses, and a person called Nick Airball Arcott on the right. Now, both of these guys play poker. They play nosebleed stakes. And when I say nosebleed stakes, they're playing big stakes, bigger games, 100, 200, 100, 200, 400. They're playing high-level games. Notice, at one point in this game, Nick Airball has 201K in front of him. These guys are big players, and they're playing at big games. In 2023, Wesley Fee on Twitter would actually call out Shane Hennen throughout that entire year, stating at one point, update: this guy who cheated us at a 3.1 million and threatened to kill me by Mars is Shane Hennen, aka Colin, aka Peter, a well-known cheater in the U.S., and he's also a convicted felon. Got lots of evidence and proof for police. Real criminal! ! #justice. He would then follow up and state more cases on Hennen, who cheated me with Yi Shen, aka Mars. Hope they are in jail together. Now, this was a pretty prominent case where multiple people stated that Hennen cheated them out of millions of dollars. And we can actually see in one of the photos Shane Hennen playing at a game in LA. I believe this is Steve Aoki's game. Steve Aoki is a popular DJ. He would host a game. I would also talk to another person that played at a game in Las Vegas and in LA. This was a totally different game, and it was run by a player called Chad Powers. Supposedly that game was cheated as well. And Hennen, it was funny because I talked to somebody and they told me, the guy that I talked to, that he never would win a pot. And Hennen won every pot. He would hit every gut shot. He would hit every straight. He would hit every flush. Every card went to him. It just didn't seem right. And he lost after a while, jocked it up, and just never went back. This was very prolific, these cheating scams that Hennen was running, his people were running. All the people that were running these games are seemingly involved in as well. And I didn't talk at much to Wesley Fee. He did retweet one of my posts on Twitter about this case. So not only is Hennen cheating poker games, high-level poker games, but he's also scamming people selling sports picks. I want to also make it clear, just because you're a sports betting handicapper, it doesn't mean you're a scammer. That said, if you are saying that you're winning and you're not winning, that would be kind of scammy, if we're being honest. We also know that in early 2025, Shane Hennen is arrested boarding a flight, a one-way flight to Colombia. Now, we'll come back to why he was arrested, and the fact that he was let go the next day is even kind of more strikingly odd. But then again, where does this delve from? Because not only is Shane Hennen involved in poker games, he's also seemingly starting to meet people that can allow him to get information on basketball games. One of the people that he had been close to for years is a person we talked about in the previous episode about this entire case, the man circled, Amar Awadi. From what I understand, Hennen and Awadi have been close for years. Not only are they involved in poker cheating, but they were involved in this case against Jontay Porter, which popped up in 2024. Notice multiple people. Notice the guy in the foreground here with the glasses and the gray hat. That's a person called Mahmoud Mullah, I believe his name is, as well as the man in the green in the back of this photo. That is Long Fee Pham, a.k.a. Bruce. These guys were integral in a case involving an NBA player called Jontay Porter. Jontay Porter played for the Toronto Raptors, played for the Memphis Grizzlies. He was indicted last year by the feds. This was really the first shoe to drop in these NBA gambling cases. And we would find Long Fee Pham's name, Mullah's name, Awadi's name, and Shane Hennen. And when we look into these sports betting and poker indictments, there's a lot of the same people. And we find that they all know each other in some way. Let's talk a little bit about Porter. On or about January 26, 24 and March 20th, 2024, the Toronto Raptors played the LA Clippers and the Sacramento Kings. Prior to the January 26th game and March 20th game, Jontay Porter, then a player on the Raptors, agreed with Long Fee Pham, who I just mentioned, and others to exit a game prematurely on the basis of an injury so that certain co-conspirators could place fraudulent wagers on Jontay Porter's betting prop unders. Prior to both games, Long Fee Pham provided non-public information about Porter to the defendant, Shane Hennen, for the purpose of causing or enabling Hennen to place fraudulent wagers based on non-public information. After obtaining this non-public information, Hennen then shared this information with the defendant, Marvis Fairley. Now, remember that name, Marvis Fairley. He was named in this most recent sports betting indictment involving Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones. So we know, again, all of these people know each other. They're all fervent and ardent scammers. That's what they are. These people are not gangsters. They're not mobsters. They're young people who have good connections. They use those connections through, again, knowing that people like to gamble. We would find out Jontay Porter owed money to Mullah and Awadi for poker games. Notice most of the people in that indictment, Damon Jones, Chauncey Billups, all people that like to gamble. So they're using this and saying, okay, Jontay, you owe us, I don't know, $80K. You can't pay us. So do us a favor. In this game or two, just go out with an injury. No one will ever find out. Porter does it. And now look, he's indicted. And what's interesting is Jontay Porter knew this kind of stuff. On April 4th, weeks after the alleged March 20th scheme, Jontay Porter texted defendant Mullah, defendant Pham, and another unidentified individual that they, quote, might get hit with a RICO, and then asked the group to, quote, delete all the stuff according to the complaint. So again, Porter knew this was not good, and this could get him in big trouble, i.e., we might get hit with a RICO. On April 10th, days later, authorities allege Porter texted Mullah, quote, I really need you to hound DraftKings. At least get back my principal money, end quote. Also, according to the affidavit on March 20th, hours before the game, Mullah placed his first bet at 7:24 p.m. after first depositing approximately $66,900 in cash into a DraftKings account, which was caught on camera. So he went to a legal sports book and did his thing. And again, we know that Jontay Porter knows that he can't do this because he's texting people after doing stuff and saying, delete shit. We're gonna hit with federal charges here. Now, maybe he was just saying that as a joke, but it ended up being legitimate. Now, what's interesting about Hennen is I don't think it was just NBA information he was getting. I also think, and if you follow college sports over the last year or two, there have been approximately a dozen investigations into multiple schools at the college level, including, now again, this was announced just in September. Over the last year or two, 13 former men's basketball players at multiple schools, including Arizona State, Temple, North Carolina A&T, Eastern Michigan, University of New Orleans, and Mississippi Valley State. So what does that mean? Well, there was irregular betting info and bets being placed in their games, and people believe that some of these people were behind college sports as well. Now, it is interesting. Notice one of those schools, Temple University, which 6 games were looked at that school. Shane Hennen lived in Philadelphia for a period of time. And we know beyond a reasonable doubt that he has connections. He has the ability to go to a player and say, look, my man, you're not making that much money. You're not making any money through NIL. Do us a favor here. We would also find out that a player at Temple University, a player called Hyzier Miller, was investigated by the NCAA. He would be kicked off the Temple basketball program, then go to Virginia Tech and be kicked off that program. I want to go back to this game in particular between UAB and Temple in March of 2024. Now, the number in this game opened UAB minus 2.5. It closed at almost 10. That's a huge move in a late season college basketball game. So the whole world was on UAB. What do? They win 100-72. Now, again, some of this stuff, and when you look into the irregular betting patterns into that game, the Borgata in Atlantic City actually pulled that game because of the irregular betting, the movement on that game. You don't see, look, maybe early in the season, first couple of games, you'll see some big moves. But late in the season, you don't see a move 7, 8, 9 points. That's insane. And then that team just happens to win by, 28 points. Now, what's interesting is if we look back to that game, UAB Temple on March 7th, 2024, Hyzier Miller, who I just talked about, was the leading scorer at the time for Temple in that game. Didn't do much. In fact, didn't do anything really. So, just pointing that out. Now, I'm not stating that he's a criminal. I'm not stating he should be indicted. I'm just saying that, do I think that college sports are involved in this game fixing stuff that we've seen in the NBA? Players going out early, things like that? Probably. Did Hyzier Miller maybe say, hey, I got you. I ain't going to do much. I'm the leading scorer. Or, hey, a couple of our guys, we got issues. Giving information to people. Having information. I will state, having inside information, is it a crime? Probably not. But when you're defrauding sports books who are in bed with states, you have problems. And they're going to bring down the book on you. It's no secret that Shane Hennen very much knew about this stuff and used it to his advantage. Now, we also know that it wasn't just the sports betting. We also saw Hennen's name pop up in the poker game indictment. We do know also that Mr. Hennen was very tight to Amar Awadi, who ran the game when it was at 80 Washington Place in New York City. Now, question that I have for our mafia suspects here, and we know that the 80 Washington Place was overseen by the Gambino and Genovese crime family. Now, defendants Awadi and John Gallo joined the rigged poker scheme. They had already been operating the Washington Place game. So what happens is they're running this game. The mob comes and says, look, this is our territory. You got to give us a piece. You guys run it. We just oversee it. You give us an envelope. Everybody's happy. In fact, that was confirmed by Flappy, a.k.a. Awadi. Hennen asked him, quote, "So what family you with now? Gambling. Colombo or Genovese?" Laughed my ass off. Flappy, Gambino, sir. So we know that beyond a reasonable doubt, the Gambino crime family was overseeing the 80 Washington Place game alongside a made member of the Genovese crime family. Now notice defendants Lee Fama, Angie Ruggiero Jr., and Joe Lonnie are all mentioned here as the overseers for the Gambinos. Here's the question that I have for the Gambino defendants. Awadi handled the game and all personnel involved. Why is a known informant at your game? Can you explain that? Lonnie, Fama, Ruggiero. If I can find it on Google with a simple search, how didn't you? When we look back at some of these indictments, especially this one, if I'm an old timer to Gambino crime family, I'm thinking, what in the fuck did you guys not see here? How do you not do some due diligence to some of the players here, especially the ones that are running or overseeing these games for you? This is, again, where the mob has major problems nowadays. They're lax. They're lazy with their ways they earn. They're putting themselves at risk. And what's going to happen here is some of these people are going to flip, and they're going to put you all into cases, and it could have been fixed if you didn't get into bed with some of these people. These are some of the biggest scammers in the country. But as we know, the mob is willing to overlook things to make money. I talked to one person in Howard Beach in Queens. They told me, they said, take the biggest rat in the mob. Anybody. Take any one of them. If they came to some of these guys with an opportunity to make money, they would look past the fact that they're a rat as long as they made money for them. That's, I think, where we are. And again, this is why we allow, or this family or these families allow a person like this around. This guy is a snake. He's been a snake his entire life. He's been a scammer his entire life. And I think that's the downfall of a lot of this stuff, because we look at what happens. The 80 Washington Place and the Lexington game merge, which we talked about in the indictment. We know that Awadi starts his own game on the same night and everything. And then other members and associates of the mob, including Tommy DiLeonardo, run into 80 Washington Place and assault Mr. Awadi, to which after that, DiLeonardo mentions to other defendants that they should no longer have contact with Awadi, Bruce, John, Saul, all of them. Now, we also know that Bruce is Long Fee Fam. I have it on good authority that Long Fee Fam is talking. Again, another scam artist, probably going to flip. And we don't blame them. They're not mobsters. They're going to do what they have to do. These guys are snakes. They are rats. They will do anything they can to survive. We don't blame them. Again, this is what scam artists and criminals do. And what is amazing about people like Hennen is we were warned about this by Franco Bedini. This is, guys, what happens to you when you trust people like Shane Hennen. You go to prison. Shane Hennen, beyond a reasonable doubt, according to Bedini, never spoke or did anything with drugs with Bedini, but he made everybody believe he did. Now, also, we know that there are multiple defendants that are involved in Hobbs Act robberies, extortions, and Awadi is one of them. He was involved in stealing the shuffling machine. He then joked about it with Hennen after the fact. Hennen would ask him, quote, "Word on the street, you and Rob, y'all taking DM1s now? Shit getting real in NYC, LOL." So Hennen's joking about taking shuffling machines. And what Hennen will do here, just like every other thing that he's been involved in, is cooperate. We have to ask ourselves, in January of 2025, Shane Hennen was arrested in the Jonte Porter indictment. He was boarding a flight, a one-way ticket to Colombia. So he was attempting to flee. He understood what was going on, just like Long Fee Fam, who was attempting to board a flight to Australia, where he was arrested. Why was Hennen released the next day? Isn't that a flight risk? Isn't that like the definition of a flight risk? A person with money who is attempting to flee, you don't give them bail. My belief, and I think we'll find this out in the coming weeks and months, is as we put a bow on this, at least right now, the source of this case, the poker case, the sports betting case, all this stuff, would it be surprising at all if this was all orchestrated by Hennen? Where did all the money come from? My guess, the feds. The feds have had him in business for years, just like they had Ron Previty in business for years ago. Remember Ron Previty talked about the fact that he was paid millions of dollars to be a paid informant? My guess is Shane Hennen has been a paid informant this entire time. Back from when he was arrested in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I think he cooperated at that point. Along the way, made some pals, and they said, look, we'll front you as this like gambling guy. You go and get in these intimate circles because you're good at that. You manipulate a bunch of people. And what we'll do is most of us will be elevated and make career cases over this. My guess right now is this guy is the glitz and glam of the FBI right now. They are loving him because he has fed them cases on a silver platter. Look at what this has turned into. This is an international case. This involves the NBA. This involves the mafia. This involves high-level poker. This involves sports betting. They can now talk about sports betting as the pariah, and it's got to go away, and we got to make this, and we got to do that because of it. People will be elevated in careers in the AOSA world to the federal government. Look at the Eastern District. Cash Patel. These guys loving Shane Hennen. Would it be surprising at all if that's the truth? I mean, at the end of the day, we know Hennen's a cooperator anyway. He's been one for years. I'll leave you with one quote about Hennen. Someone would tell me he can scam you, manipulate you, and then make you believe he's actually helping you. What a quote. So he can scam and manipulate, and he'll still try to sell to you that it's all in your best interest. I didn't talk to one person that told me a positive thing about Hennen. Nothing. He's a scam artist. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a lifelong scammer. And he's at the center of this. And what's going to happen in the end is a lot of people did business with him when they shouldn't have. This guy should have been nowhere near games. And as I talked about with the poker stuff, they didn't need to be fixed, these games. But people like this have to look like they have money. They have to do what they have to do to survive. This is how you get the Rolls Royces and the $100,000 game bets. Scamming. And what's crazy is Shane Hennen won't pay for this. In fact, like I said, he's probably the belle of the ball right now for the FBI because they made the cases between him. And what will happen is he'll be doing it again, and again. So my advice to all of you folks that play poker and are in sports betting or whatever, do not do business with this guy. I have it on good authority. He was in Vegas this summer trying to make pals at the World Series of Poker. Luckily, most people are starting to understand who he is. But let this be a lesson. Don't deal with people like this. And you look at guys that are in the mob, guys like Fama and Ruggiero and Lonnie, they're all going to catch a case and do some prison time because of people like this. So tighten up, folks, if you're in that life. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to support us further, hit that super thanks icon below the video. Support the channel, contribute, show love to our sponsor, ProfitX. As I said, guys, this is going to be the last video, at least for this gambling case for a little bit, unless we get some information. I do have some pretty good videos coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the Netflix stuff that has come out recently about the mob. We're also going to put down a stupid rumor, as usual, from Scott Bernstein, who continues to lie and connive people on his nonsense. So that's coming in the next week or so. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.